Welcome to a meeting of your Planning Commission, the official local planning agency for the cities of Tampa, Temple Terrace, Plant City, and unincorporated Hillsborough County. The Planning Commission provides innovative leadership and long-range vision that contributes to the creation of a thriving, prosperous community that offers opportunity, fairness, and choice in how we live, move, learn, work, and play. For more information about the Planning Commission, please call 813-272-5940. Follow us on social media or visit our website at planhillsborough.org.
Good afternoon and welcome to the December 12th, 2022 regular meeting of the Hillsborough County City-County Planning Commission. Hang on for just a sec. We thank you for attending this meeting. Your comments and participation are encouraged. For those attending in person and wishing to speak on any agenda item, please sign the register at the rear of the room and turn off any devices that may be a distraction. To minimize feedback in the audio, all online participants in the meeting will be muted until it is their opportunity to speak. Planning commissioners should unmute themselves to indicate that they would like to speak. Please be sure to state your name at the beginning of your remarks for the benefit of the clerk. There will be an opportunity for members of the public to provide comments. When your name is called, you will be unmuted. When it is your turn to speak, please wait until the chair calls on you to begin speaking. State your name at the beginning of your comments and adhere to the time limits. If anyone has difficulties or is watching via HTV and would like to provide comments to be included in the record for local government hearing, please email them to planner@plancom.org. That's planner@plancom.org. For action items, the meeting will be conducted as follows. The agenda item will be introduced. Staff will give their presentation with a 15-minute time limit. The applicant will be given the opportunity to make a presentation with a 15-minute time limit. Following presentations, members of the public may address the Planning Commission when recognized by the chair. Public comment will be heard for 3 minutes per person. The applicant will be afforded a 3-minute period for rebuttal or response. Planning commissioners will then ask questions. Public comment will be closed. Then upon a motion, a second, and discussion, a vote will be taken. With that introduction, I will ask Commissioner Buzzer to lead us in the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Would all please rise. Thank you, Commissioner Buzzer. All right. With that introduction, I will ask the clerk to go ahead and do roll call, please.
Bernstein?
Here.
Bowden?
Here.
Buzza?
Here.
Cardenas?
Here.
Fernandez?
Here.
Handy? Here. Kress?
Here.
Lau?
Here.
Soria?
Here.
Orton?
Here.
Rodriguez?
Here.
Joseph?
Here.
You have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. All right. The next item up is the approval of minutes for the following meetings. The regular meeting, October 10th. The public hearing on Hillsborough County Plan Amendments, October 10th. The regular meeting, November 7th. And the public hearing on City of Tampa Plan Amendments, November 7th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right. Motion of approval by Commissioner Buzza. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Second to that motion by Commissioner Bowden. Any more discussion from the commissioners? Seeing none at this time, I'll ask the clerk to go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Bernstein?
Yes.
Bowden?
Yes.
Buzza?
Yes.
Cardenas?
Yes.
Fernandez?
Yes.
Handy? Yes. Kress,
Yes.
Lauk,
Yes.
Soria,
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
Motion carried 10-0.
Thank you. All right, next item is public input for items not scheduled on the agenda. We didn't have anyone sign up for this meeting, so we will move on to our action items, and the first one is 3A, City of Tampa Land Development Code Text Amendment. And the presenter is Emily Phelan.
Good afternoon, Emily Phelan, Planning Commission staff. This is Tampa Land Development Code Text Amendment, Residential Vehicular Access in the West Tampa Overlay. This was part of the January 2022 cycle, and it was publicly initiated. The request seeks to amend section 27-241, and the language encourages alley access as a primary vehicular access point, and the proposed language also would allow, through an alternative design exception, access from a public right-of-way. Planning Commission staff reviewed the request, and it continues to recognize the significant role of alleys in defining the character of traditional Tampa neighborhoods, and it ensures that municipal codes remain sensitive to the changing trends and needs of Tampa's neighborhoods by reviewing all land development regulations. Based on those considerations, Planning Commission staff recommends that the proposed Land Development Code text amendment be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. This concludes my presentation, and I will pass it off to the city.
Stephen Benson, City of Tampa. This amendment was requested by the West Tampa CRA CAC. So we are bringing this forward to add some clarification and require an additional process for a design exception for properties that are not able to access an alley to provide another design approach that is consistent with the overlay standards. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Alrighty, we didn't have anyone sign up for public comment on this one, so we will turn it over to the planning commissioners for questions or comments.
Just a quick question.
Commissioner Kress, yeah.
So you heard from the West Tampa CRA CAC on this. They're supportive of the language you came back with.
Yes, there are some other changes that they would like to see, but we're waiting to do some additional analysis before we bring those forward. This is more of a stopgap measure to do no additional harm while we work through those changes with them. So,
Sounds good. Thank you.
thanks.
Are there any more questions, comments, discussions from the commissioners? Not seeing any, then I'll go on ahead and close public comment on this item and open it up to motions from the commissioners on this item. Oh, Commissioner Bernstein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I would move that we find City of Tampa Land Development Code text amendment proposed to Section 27-241E2, subsection C5, consistent with the goals, policies, and objectives of the Tampa Comprehensive Plan, and that we pass it along to the Tampa City Council for their consideration.
All right, I have a motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Bernstein. Commissioner Buzza?
I'll second.
All right, second to that motion by Commissioner Buzza. Is there any more discussion from the commissioners on this item? Not seeing any, I'll ask the clerk to go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Bernstein,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Buzza,
Yes.
Cardenas,
Yes.
Fernandez,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Kress,
Yes.
Lauk,
Yes.
Soria,
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
Motion carried 10-0.
Thank you. All right. Our next item up on the agenda is 3B, City of Tampa Land Development Code Text Amendment. And the presenter for this one is Sam Thomas.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Sam Thomas with your Planning Commission staff. This is Tampa Land Development Text Code Amendment regarding individual special uses, accessory dwelling units, extended family residence, and ADUs as a specified use. Some background on this is it was initiated in the July 2022 cycle. It's a publicly initiated amendment, and it was continued from your November 7th meeting. The amendment seeks the following changes. It recategorizes accessory dwelling units from a special use to a specified use. It streamlines the regulations governing extended family residence, and it removes the requirements that the main residence is owner occupied for ADUs, but not for extended family dwelling residences. The proposed language will also add that an accessory dwelling unit may be metered separately for utilities and that the number of unrelated occupants shall not exceed 2. Planning Commission staff evaluated this amendment and found it consistent with multiple aspects of the comprehensive plan. Allowing greater flexibility for homeowners to develop extended family residence and accessory dwelling units furthers the intent of the comprehensive plan and supports expanding rental housing opportunities, enabling people to age in place in their neighborhood. The proposed changes would increase the housing opportunities and promote mixed-income neighborhoods and encourage infill development that promote a consistency with the compact city form strategy. And then lastly, the request continues to streamline development review process and ensure that the codes are sensitive to the changing trends in the neighborhood. And that concludes my presentation, and the city is available to answer any questions. I am as well.
All right, thank you very much. We didn't have anyone sign up for the public comment on this one either, so we'll turn it over to the commissioners for questions or comments. Not seeing any at this time. Oh, I thought does the city have a presentation? I thought the city was just answering questions if they, yeah. Okay, that's what I assumed, okay. No questions or comments from the commissioners, then I will go on ahead and close public comment and open it up for motions from the commissioners on this item. Commissioner Buzza.
I'd like to move we find the LDC text amendment consistent with the Tampa Comprehensive Plan and forward on to the Tampa City Council.
All right, that's a motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Buzza. Commissioner Soria?
I will second the motion.
Second to that motion by Commissioner Soria. Are there any more questions or discussions of this item from the commissioners? Not seeing any at this time, then I'll ask the clerk to go ahead and do a roll call vote on this item.
Bernstein,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Buzza,
Yes?
Cardenas,
Yes.
Fernandez,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Kress,
Yes.
Lauk,
Yes.
Soria,
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
Motion carried 10-0.
Thank you. All right, next up on our agenda, we have briefings and presentations. Item 4A, HCCPA 22-13, Future Land Use Map Amendment, and the presenter is Carla Llanos.
Good afternoon, Carla Llanos with Planning Commission staff. This is Plan Amendment 22-13, also known as 6359 County Road 579. This plan amendment is located in the middle of the October 2022 plan amendment cycle. The property is located within the limits of the Tono-Tasasa Community Plan, and it's also within the limits of the rural service area. It is located at 6359 County Road 579, which is east of County Road 579 and south of Pruitt Road in unincorporated Hillsborough County. The request is for a privately initiated comprehensive plan map amendment on 6.16 acres. It's to change the future land use from residential 4 to light industrial planned. On this slide, you have a 2022 aerial photograph with the surrounding uses labeled. The property is located within an area with light and heavy industrial uses, as well as light commercial, public, quasi-public, institutional uses, and these are more of the predominant uses. There are pockets of agricultural and residential. Now, the subject site currently is vacant, and to the north, northeast, west, and northwest is single-family residences. To the southeast is public institutional use, and to the south is a small mobile home park, followed by light industrial use, and also to the southwest is heavy industrial use.
The property has an adopted future land use of residential 4, which allows typically residential, suburban scale neighborhood commercial uses, office uses, and multipurpose projects. The subject property is surrounded by residential 4 future land use category to the north, west, northwest, and southwest. Light industrial plan future land use category is found to the south, and quasi-public, quasi-public is found to the east. The proposed future land use is light industrial, which does not allow any residential. It does allow light industrial uses, such as processing, manufacturing, recycling, and storage of materials as predominant uses. And there's some other uses that can be included, such as support offices, warehousing, and rural scale retail uses. On this screen before you, you'll see the maximum potential impacts per the adopted and proposed future land use categories. The adopted residential 4 future land use category will allow a standard density of 4 dwelling units to the acre, or 0.25 floor area ratio. This would allow the property to have 24 dwelling units, or approximately 67,000 square feet of non-residential. Under the proposed light industrial plan future land use category, it does not produce any residential density, but it does allow for a non-residential floor area ratio of 0.75. This means it would allow for approximately 201,000 square feet of non-residential use. In summary, the proposed change would add non-residential intensity. It eliminates the residential density and introduces the possibility of light industrial uses such as processing, manufacturing, recycling, and storage of materials. Now, this plan amendment is still under review, and a detailed staff report will be provided to you before the public hearing. It's currently anticipated to go before the Board of County Commissioners workshop on December 14th, as well as go before your Planning Commission Board for a public hearing on January 9th of next year, and with a final adoption date of January 26th of next year before the Board of County Commissioners. And I'll gladly answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners on this item? Commissioner Buzzo.
Just a real quick question. Is that serviced by county sewer and water?
I will check my
I know that
comments
the,
right here.
they've got the
Believe
Lazy
it
Days
is.
Park down to the south of that position, and then the landfills to the east.
Correct. We're still receiving agency comments. However, I did receive the ones for public utilities, and it does state that the subject area falls outside of the Hillsborough County Water and Urban Service Area. However, there is a 12-inch water main located east of the right-of-way of County Road 579, as well as sewer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Kress? Maybe not. All right. Are there any more questions, comments from the commissioners on this item? Seeing none, we'll thank you for the presentation. Move on to our next item. 4B, ACCPA 22-17, Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, and the presenter is Jillian Massey.
Good afternoon. I'm Jillian Massey with your Planning Commission staff. This afternoon, I'm here to brief you on HCCPA 22-17, West Hillsborough Avenue and Racetrack Road. This item was actually continued from the July cycle, so you've already been briefed on this, so I'm just going to go through very quickly. As mentioned, this is part of the July 2022 plan amendment cycle. The subject sites in the western side of unincorporated Hillsborough County, west Hillsborough Avenue and east of Racetrack Road. This is an aerial photo of the site, as you can see outlined in red on the north side of West Hillsborough Avenue. Directly to the west is classified as heavy industrial with a storage building on it, and the parcel to the east is classified as vacant commercial land. The subject site is mainly surrounded by other light commercial and light industrial uses to the north, east, and west on that side of West Hillsborough Avenue, as well as some agricultural, mobile home parks, and single-family developments on the south side of West Hillsborough Avenue. Some background on this amendment is that it's privately initiated. It's located on approximately 4.56 acres in the urban service area. It's located within the limits of the Northwest and Town and Country community plans and entirely in the coastal high hazard area. This is the adopted future land use map for the subject site, which is currently designated as light industrial. There's one parcel directly to the west that's designated as Regional Mixed Use 35. However, surrounding the site along the north side of West Hillsborough Avenue corridor is mainly designated as light industrial. Along West Hillsborough Avenue to the south is designated as Office Commercial 20. Further away from the site, both to the north and south, is designated as Residential 4. The proposal before you is to change the subject site from light industrial to Regional Mixed Use 35, which allows residential, regional scale retail, commercial, office, and business park uses, research corporate park uses, and light industrial uses. This slide outlines the potential impacts of the proposed map amendment. It would allow for an increase in residential density and an increase in commercial intensity. As you can see from this table, currently there is no residential permitted in the light industrial designation, and there is a 0.75 FAR allowable for non-residential development. A regional mixed use 35 has an allowable density of 35 dwelling units per acre and a 2.0 floor area ratio. And this concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Discussion items? Nope, not seeing any. Well, thank you for the information. Move on to our next item of business. 4C, HCCPA 22-18, another future land use map amendment. And the presenter is Carly Llanos.
Again, Carly Llanos with Planning Commission staff. This is Plan Amendment 22-18, Sims Road and East Bay Road. This plan amendment is located in the South County area, just before the southernmost plan amendment for the October 2022 cycle. The property is located in the Gibsonton Community Plan within the urban service area. Approximate location of the site is west of Interstate 75 and East Bay Road, north of Sims Road, east of Cujo Lane, and south of Honeywell Road in the unincorporated Hillsborough County. The request is for a privately initiated comprehensive plan map amendment on 8.4 acres to change the future land use designation from residential 9 and 6 to residential 20. On your screen, you have a 2021 aerial with the surrounding uses. The aerial is generally composed of single-family use. There are a few pockets left of like public, quasi-public use, but generally it's surrounded by residential. Now, the property is half vacant, half single-family currently, and the densities in this area actually reach up to 6 dwelling units an acre, approximately. Now, the property has an adopted future land use category of residential 6 and 9. Typical uses in the residential 6 are residential, suburban scale neighborhood commercial, office uses, etc. The residential 9 actually allows for the same type of uses, but it's more of an urban scale. Now, the property is surrounded by Res 6 and suburban mixed use 6. So as I previously stated, it allows like maximum density of about 6 dwelling units to the acre. The proposed future land use category is residential 20. Now, typical uses are residential, neighborhood scale, neighborhood commercial, office uses, generally the same. It does allow for an increase in density, so it's about 20 dwelling units an acre. Now, on this slide, you have the maximum potential impacts under the adopted and the proposed. So under the existing future land use categories, you have residential 6, which allows 6 dwelling units to the acre or 0.25 floor area ratio, and the res 9 allows 9 dwelling units to the acre and 0.50 floor area ratio. The total combined of the future land use categories would allow the property to have 62 dwelling units or approximately about 134,000 square feet of non-residential. Now, under the proposed, the residential 20 allows for residential 20 dwelling units to the acre or 0.75 floor area ratio. This would allow the property to have 168 dwelling units or 275,000 square feet of non-residential. Now, in summary, the changes would actually increase density and intensity as well as introduce the possibility of higher intensity multifamily uses. Now, As the other plan amendments, this is still under review. We're still receiving agency comments, but a detailed staff report will be provided to you before the public hearing. It's going to briefing to the Board of County Commissioners on December 14th, which is a couple of days from now, and it will go before your board for the public hearing on January 9th, and then the Board of County Commissioners on January 26th. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions, discussion items from the commissioners? Not seeing any. We'll thank you for the information. Move on to our next item of business. That is 4D, HCCPA 22-19 Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, and the presenter is Jillian Massey.
Hi, this is Jillian Massey again with your Planning Commission staff. I'll be briefing you on HCCPA 22-19, which is Citrus Park Lane and Easy Street. This plan amendment is part of the October 2022 plan amendment cycle. It's located in northwest unincorporated Hillsborough County, south of Citrus Park Drive, between Citrus Park Lane and Easy Street. This is a privately initiated map amendment involving 7 folios that total approximately 8.18 acres. They're all located in the urban service area and within the limits of the Northwest Hillsborough Community Plan. Again, the site's located south of Citrus Park Drive between Easy Street and Citrus Park Lane. Surrounding uses are mainly light commercial uses, including the Citrus Park Mall and shopping centers to the west and northwest, the Veterans Expressway and Upper Tampa Bay Trail to the east. There are office buildings and a hotel to the south. Residential uses extend outside the periphery of the commercial uses that surround the site. This is the adopted future land use map for the subject site, which is currently designated as Residential 9. It's mainly surrounded by the urban mixed-use 20 to the west, Citrus Park Village to the north, Residential 9 to the east, and Residential 4 and Residential 6 further east. Further west is Residential 20. The proposal before you is to change the subject site from Residential 9 to Urban Mixed-Use 20, which allows residential, regional scale commercial uses such as a mall, office, and business park uses, research corporate park uses, light industrial, multi-purpose, and clustered residential and/or mixed-use projects. This slide outlines the potential impacts of the proposed map amendment. The proposed amendment would allow for an increase in residential density and an increase in commercial intensity. As you can see from this table, the allowable density would increase from a potential 9 dwelling units per acre to 20 dwelling units per acre. And the non-residential intensity would increase from a potential 0.50 FAR, or 175,000 square feet, whichever is less intense, to a potential FAR of 1.0. If changed to the urban mixed-use category, additional uses such as regional scale commercial and light industrial uses could be considered. And this concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, thank you.
Any questions from the commissioners on this? Yes, Commissioner Buzza.
Just a quick question to satisfy my curiosity. There's a cutout there for the office building that's 80,000 square feet, which would be on the eastern boundary. Can you see that on your map there?
The one that's directly on Citrus Park Drive?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that,
how did that work with the parking? Look, because the folio numbers match up to the parking lots on that. Is that, there's a PD zoning for the office building, but they didn't do a rezone when they did the parking lots, or?
I'm not very familiar with all of the previous rezonings. This map amendment actually came about because that parcel that you're referring to and the lot directly to the south came in with a rezoning. They were trying to flex the urban mixed use 20 that's to the west. However, the Easy Street portion is residential 9, so they were not able to do that because it's a private road. Now I do know that parcel that fronts on Citrus Park Drive is owned by McDonald's. It's not owned by the applicant. So is the question why they're not included in the amendment, or?
Well, can you pull your map back up again? I'm using
Can you see this?
the planning information map app, and then so the parcel there that is 3570-0 0150, which is one of the proposed parcels that is parking for the office building. Is that, the office building is on parcel 357-0-0100. I'm just curious if, how you rezone the
Sorry, I don't have the
parking lots of an
folio
office
numbers in
building.
front of me.
Yeah,
Or
the,
change the land use on them. So.
because the office building use, an office use is allowed in
The
residential 9.
Okay. All right. I was wondering why that was.
They were allowed,
a
I
big office
believe,
building.
to do the, yeah, they just put all their square footage on the parcel that was the urban mixed use 20, but to maximize their floor area ratio, I think that's why the
Res
parking
9
lots. on-
parking. Okay, that makes sense. I was confused. Thank you.
I can get some clarification for you
No,
on
that's
that
fine.
too.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Buzza. Are there any more questions from the commissioners on this item? Not seeing any. We'll thank you for the information and move on to our next item. 4E, HCCPA 22-20 Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, and the presenter is Carly Llanos.
Allow us one moment while we have to upload it into the computer. Excuse me. It might take a minute, so did we want to go to the next one while he uploads?
All right, well, yeah, we'll come back to this one. Let's go to 4F, HCCPA 22-21 Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, and the presenter for this one is Jillian Massey.
Hi, this is Jillian Massey again with your Planning Commission staff. I'm going to be presenting HCCPA 22-21 on behalf of Andrea Papandrew. And this plan amendment is with regards to 2244 University Square Mall. This is a privately initiated small-scale map amendment on approximately 6.68 acres. The proposal is to change the parcels from residential 20 and urban mixed use 20 to innovation corridor mixed use 35. The plan amendment is located in the urban service area and within the limits of the university area community plan. And as you can see here, it's located right in the center of unincorporated county. The site is located north of East Fowler Avenue. It's surrounded by the University Square Mall, light and heavy commercial uses around the site. South of East Fowler is the City of Tampa boundary. Mainly light and heavy commercial uses are south of the site along Fowler Avenue. North and west of the mall is multifamily, group homes, and public institutional uses. East of the mall is light commercial and multifamily, and northeast is single-family residential. This is the adopted future land use map. The parcels involved in the plan amendment are currently urban mixed use 20 and residential 20. The site is mainly surrounded by ICMU 35. North is residential 20. Further south, east, and west is office commercial 20. And south across Fowler Avenue is the City of Tampa community commercial 35. And this next map is just to show you the City of Tampa future land use map as it's located directly at the boundary of the City of Tampa. The City of Tampa is just to the south there. The proposed future land use for the two parcels involved in this map amendment is to change it to Innovation Corridor Mixed Use 35 or ICMU 35. This slide outlines the maximum potential intensity and density. Currently, the site would allow for 132 residential dwelling units. The change would allow a maximum potential of 232 residential dwelling units. Currently, non-residential development is a maximum of 263,319 square feet, and the change to the ICMU 35 would allow for a maximum potential of 581,960 square feet of non-residential development. If the change is approved, biomedical research, institutional, hospitals would be permitted, and neighborhood commercial uses would not be permitted. And this concludes the presentation, and I would be glad to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.
All right. Then any of the commissioners have any questions on this item? Discussion items? Not seeing any at this time. Thank you for the information.
Thank you.
And we will keep it moving then to item 4G. Or is yours loaded, Carla? Okay. Hang on.
I think Lionel has to move it specifically off the network onto the podium. Oh, okay.
All right, sorry.
Wait, let me introduce you. All right. On to item 4E, HCCPA 22-20 Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, and the presenter is Carlianos.
Carlianos with Planning Commission staff. I'm presenting on behalf of Andrea Papandrew. The property is a privately initiated regular small-scale comprehensive plan map amendment. It's approximately 122 acres in size, and it's changing from suburban mixed-use 6 to residential 9 future land use category. Now, the subject property is located east of Bullfrog Creek Road and Interstate 75. It's in the southwest portion of the county. It's in the urban service area, and it has 3 different community plan categories. So we are looking at the Riverview Community Plan, Gibsonton, and the South Shore area-wide systems. So it has all 3. The site is currently vacant. There are 73.85 acres of the 122.18 acres, which is a man-made lake, and this is stated by the applicant. Now, the surrounding area to the property is mostly vacant and single-family residential. And then we also have single-family residential development to the north, to the south, and then west across Interstate 75 is public institutional use. It's named the Golden Aster Scrub Preserve. And the subject site is within a clustering open space 50%, and it may be subject to a percentage of open space in the future, but this will be determined during the rezoning stage. The property has an adopted future land use of suburban mixed use 6. This typically allows the suburban scale neighborhood commercial uses and residential. It's typically on the urban to suburban scale. Now, suburban mixed-use 6 is found to the south and to the north of the site, and to the east is residential 9. West across Interstate 75 is a natural preservation area as well. Now, the proposal before you is going to residential 9. The Res 9 allows the same type of uses as the SMU 6, but it's more on an urban scale. Before you are the impacts under the existing and the potential future land use category. So under the existing, it would allow for approximately 733 dwelling units or 1 million square feet of non-residential use. Under the potential Res 9, it's going to give you approximately 1,000 dwelling units and 2.5 million square feet of non-residential. Now, overall, it just increases the density and intensity on the site, and if approved, the urban scale commercial uses would be permitted, and suburban scale neighborhood commercial, research corporate park, and light industrial uses would not be permitted. So those are the differences. And this is the plan amendment, and I will be glad to answer any questions that I may have, that you may have, I should say.
Any questions from the commissioners on this item? Commissioner Bernstein, I see you moving.
Yeah, just briefly looking at the map, making sure I understand the terrain here. So am I right in looking at about somewhere around 2/3 of the dotted area is a body of water? Is that Bullfrog Creek?
Correct. It has a significant amount of water or wetland area. Now, EPC, they did review this, and we've gotten, a few of their comments so far, and it hasn't been revised. The wetland determination is informal and non-binding, but during the rezoning process, they are going to have to, finalize that. But approximately, they have about 73.85 acres. That is a man-made lake. You're welcome.
All right. Are there any more questions from the commissioners on this item? Not seeing any at this time. Well, thank you for the information. And move on to our next item of business. 4G. Yes, 4G, City of Tampa Land Development Code Text Amendment, and the presenter is Emily Phelan.
Emily Phelan, Planning Commission staff. This is a briefing for Tampa Land Development Code Text Amendment for Section 27-240 and 27-156 as it relates to East Tampa overlay design guidelines and the accessory dwelling units in East Tampa. This item will come before you again in the public hearing on January 9th, and city staff.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. LaShawn Dock with Development Coordination. And can I use this, Elmo? Yes. So there are two sections of the code that would be covered under this privately initiated text amendment. The applicant for this request is the East Tampa CRA and also the East Tampa CAC, the Community Advisory Committee. This started, this was an effort that started several years ago. You may recall with a couple of years ago, West Tampa, we came to you with the change to West Tampa's overlay code. This was started at the same time, but the East Tampa CAC membership was changing. It was in flux, so they wanted to make sure they had the board in place, the membership in place, and get the direction again for the community. So now they are bringing forward an update to their overlay standards. They're going to amend actually one section of the code. The language you have before you includes language regarding ADUs, accessory dwelling units, and they are going to remove that language out of their request moving forward based upon feedback received from the community and from City Council during the City Council workshop. So there's one section of the code they will amend, and that's 27-240. And that was related to the ADUs. There's a change that would take place between, oh, I'm sorry, are you seeing this?
No.
Now? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's not
I
on
could
you.
just mention it too,
Okay.
I'm sorry. So there are two areas of the code which would be amended. So one is the residential section for East Tampa overlay. And the residential section includes changes to the front yard setback, which is now based upon a block average. It would change to a range between 15 to 25 feet. There's also changes proposed to the garage setbacks, carports, where they could be located in their side yard placement. Also, installation of new chain link fence would be prohibited under the changes in the code. If you have it existing, it can remain and for repair, but you just could not install new chain link fencing. And two-story accessory structures could be approved if that is the precedent on the block. The changes to the non-residential, there are a few changes that are listed. So one would be the front yard built-to line. That would also be a range, and that would be a range of 10 feet to 12 feet instead of using that block average. The building facade for the front would be designed to be oriented and treated as the principal entry to the building. A minimum of 6-foot wide sidewalks are required with development within the overlay. Screening requirements are established, and that includes for any open space areas for rooftop equipment, solid waste, also accessory structures, the finish on those structures. And then finally, the parking standards. This would establish and incorporate parking offsets for certain uses, non-residential uses, to include mixed-use development and commercial development. Thank you. And then the sign standards is the last, and that will be regarding the size for building signs and freestanding signs. And that's the last item for the non-residential changes. And just to show you, that's the residential changes list. But that concludes all of the changes for this particular private amendment. I'm available if you have any questions.
All right, were there any questions on this item from the commissioners? This time, not seeing, oh, Commissioner Kress.
Just to clarify, so you worked with the CAC members of the East Tampa CRA?
Yes.
And they're on board with all of the proposed changes?
They are, and they were on board also with the ADU language that was initially submitted, but at the workshop for City Council, there were members of the public that came to the meeting, and they had a misunderstanding of what was an ADU. Just needed more clarification on the request overall. So the decision was, for the sake of timing, and because there's the publicly initiated amendment running concurrently regarding ADUs, the CRA decided to just hold on the ADU language. But yes, the CAC also has seen this language and agrees.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, are there any more questions, comments on this item from the commissioners? Not seeing any at this time, then we will thank you for the information, and we'll move on to our next item. Our final item, 4H, City of Tampa Land Development Code Text Amendment, and the presenter again is Emily Phelan.
Emily Phelan, Planning Commission staff. This is a briefing for Tampa Land Development Code Text Amendment for Section 27-283.7, 27-283.15, 27-284.3.3, and, oh, sorry, I had that one twice, as it related to multifamily requirements in the Central Business District periphery. This item will come before you again on January 9th for the public hearing, and pass it off to staff.
Commissioners, LaShawn Dock, Development Coordination, City of Tampa. And I don't know if this is going to work now or not. It's up, okay. So this is a privately initiated text amendment. The applicant is Tyler Hudson. And the request would be to amend 3 sections, 3 areas of the code in the zoning code. This would affect the CBD periphery, the properties that are located within that boundary. The only other option for the applicant was to actually amend the parking code for the city, and that would be a citywide amendment. And staff did not support that request, so they narrowed it to this area. Which is before you, the CBD periphery. But this would modify parking standards for residential multifamily. The requirements, it removes the visitor parking requirement, allows parking trade-offs for that use, and loading berth requirements would be modified. And then there are 2 areas within the landscape requirements that would be amended, and that is how the green space is calculated and determined. And Those are the changes that are proposed with this request, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Were there any questions? Commissioner Kress?
Could you put that back up, please?
Yes.
I think it said one space per unit. What is it currently?
It would currently be, it's based upon the number of bedrooms that you'd have, so it could be 2 spaces or 1.5,
Okay.
depending on the number, whether it's 2 bedroom or even 3 bedrooms.
Okay.
Will
I-
require up to 2.
I didn't take the time, but does this align pretty well with the central business district?
It absolutely
changes? Okay,
does, and
I
as
thought
a
that.
matter of fact, Commissioner, yes, that was what we used as the model and what the applicant utilized, just to make it consistent, and especially because this applies to properties within the CBD periphery, we figured that that would align with that.
Perfect, thank
Absolutely.
you.
You're welcome.
All right, Commissioner Bowden?
Excuse me, what are parking trade-offs?
Yes, parking trade-offs are, so in the code for the city, you have your required use. And that required use would have parking that's required based upon that use. Your trade-offs are things like you may offer bicycle parking. And you get for however many bicycle spaces you provide, a trade-off of 1 parking space. Or there are other items that you could provide for that trade-off, but that's what we utilize. With any of the text amendments that are coming forward, we encourage the parking trade-offs in the code. They currently exist in special districts also. Absolutely.
All right, were there any more? Yes, Commissioner Fernandez?
I was just curious, the visitor parking, why would that be a good thing to get rid of?
Currently now, in the code, the visitor parking, depending on the number of units you provide and the number of bedrooms, sometimes you end up with a half space. It rounds up to 1 for visitor parking. The thought is that there are other forms of transportation, other modes of transportation that exist. And sometimes the parking requirement that exists today you may end up with a development that might possibly be overparked in a way. We may say, so it's recognizing these other modes, and the thought is that you would not need as much parking, or the visitor parking with that,
Okay.
the trade-off.
All right,
Like
my-
ride share programs, things like that.
Yeah, my concern with that would be that, when having somebody visit you, they'd have to pay if they were to park somewhere, right? So there'd be because right now, almost, if I'm not correct, every street has Park Mobile on it now. And even just dropping something off to a friend can cost you $4. Because I know I come downtown and I'm running to a bagel shop and come back out and like the bagel is cheaper than the parking I just, to be down here in downtown. So that just concerns me a bit. Thank you.
And keep in mind also that this is with the CBD periphery. This is for properties located outside of that CBD boundary.
Could I add a point to that?
Yes.
It's not prohibiting the developers from including it. It's just saying you don't have to. So, and
Yes.
if these are all in a very walkable environment as well.
And in alignment with the changes you've just seen and recently seen approved with the CBD changes.
All right, were there any other questions or discussion items from the commissioners on this one? Not seeing any, then we'll thank you for the
Thank you,
information.
Commissioners.
And move on to our executive director's report. And the presenter is Melissa Zornita.
Good afternoon, Melissa Zornita, Executive Director. At your seats, you should have a copy of my report. A couple of items that I wanted to highlight for you all. Some of you all went with, the TPO had a tour of the Sunrunner BRT in Pinellas County. And some of you got to go along with us on that. But that was a good example of some lower cost transportation alternatives being provided in our region. We had our first open house on the Palm River Community Plan. I attended one of the 2 open houses, but they had one on a weekday evening and then one on a Saturday morning, and those got some very good attendance. We've been making the rounds, trying to introduce ourselves and the organization to the new Board of County Commissioner members who have recently joined, and briefing them on the items that are going to be coming before them in the next couple of months. And we've started getting some of the initial recommendations on the future land use assessment that's being done with the City of Tampa, and are having a series of working group meetings with the City of Tampa staff on those recommendations. We should be bringing the next step to you in February, I believe, for some initial briefing. I participated in the Great American Teach-In with a couple of different classes, which is always fun. Made a presentation to the Urban Land Institute's Tampa Region Board. They had sort of a roundtable of planners from around the region talking about different initiatives and ways that they could get involved in them. We've been having a number of holiday events with staff. It's been really nice to get back to sort of a normal schedule of being able to exchange cookies and things like that. So that's been nice from a morale standpoint. And we actually have an all-staff retreat on this Thursday. And then there's a whole lot of briefings. A couple of things that have occurred also in terms of plan amendments. The One Water plan amendment that you saw for the City of Tampa, the first phase of their update was transmitted unanimously by the City Council last Thursday night. Plant City has taken action on a number of plan amendments. They adopted 3 amendments, one that was at Charlie Taylor Road north of East Baker Street, the Lakeside Station Plan Amendment, and the revisions to the Gateway District that's along South 39 were all adopted in November. And then they transmitted the proposal to add 2 new land use categories, the residential 1 and the residential 2 categories. They transmitted an amendment on Sparkman Road that was to residential 4, and one that was on North Frontage Road to industrial. And then tonight they have a public hearing on another plan amendment, which is part of why their public hearing is first at 5:30, so they can get out to Plant City real quick. And then also Mark reported that the City Commission approved the item you did to the procedures manual, increasing the noticing distance. So lots of things getting acted upon here before the end of the year by the local governments. Let's see, I did want to mention that, as you will notice, Commissioner Handy is participating virtually today. And I wanted to be real transparent about that issue because when her conflict arose, she asked about it. I worked with our attorney, Robin, on it, and there has not been a change in state law about how this is handled, but what we've observed is that the practice has changed, and that virtual participation is being accommodated by more and more local governments when there is when circumstances prevent in-person attendance, but the participant can fully attend virtually. The important part to understand is that we have to have an in-person quorum for this body to conduct business. And in my view, that 9 of you all are here, or 11 with our ex officios, is the most transparent way for us to conduct business. Us having our meetings as scheduled is very critical because these are publicly noticed meetings. We've got folks from the public who are planning to attend the public hearings. We have applicants who are expecting these things to occur on a schedule. So while some limited virtual attendance can be accommodated, should you have a circumstance prevent you from being here, but you could be somewhere else and fully participate, like you can see the exhibits. I wouldn't advise running through the airport or something like that while you're participating in the meeting. My overarching concern is going to be that we continue to have in-person participation so that we can continue to conduct the business of this body. I see a number of other boards who have maybe more virtual participation, but they have quite a bit of difficulty achieving an in-person quorum. And the transportation planning organizations committees are a great example of that. Just last week, their Citizens Advisory Committee could not conduct business because they didn't have enough people there in person. So that is a sort of an overarching concern I have about it. I think, I don't know if Attorney Robin would like to say anything further on that.
I think the only other thing I would add to that, Melissa, would be that it's the underlying premise for attendance by phone or virtually is that you've got some circumstances that have arisen that you're physically unable to be here. And it's not appropriate to simply decide, I don't feel like driving in today, which has never been a problem for this board. But it is important to understand that criteria is still in place.
So I welcome feedback or discussion on that. I just want to be transparent about how you all can avail yourselves of that option should the need arise, but I'm hoping that it's not so much that like earlier this year, we had a meeting where we did not have a quorum and we had to reschedule the approval of the redistricting for the city of Tampa because of that. And that, if that sort of, so it's important that we have as many of you all here as we can. Okay, I'm seeing lots of head nodding, so thank you. The last thing that I had on my list to bring up is that we regularly report on our strategic plan. You'll be getting an annual report in January and then a presentation in February on our progress on that. But the strategic plan was for 5 years and it ends in 2023. So Sharon will be getting with you all. We've identified a date that we're aiming for in June. Unfortunately, I don't remember off the top of my head what it is. So we'll be getting that emailed out to you all, but I wanted you all to be alerted to the fact that we will be having a strategic planning retreat in June is what we're aiming for. And that will also be with the River Board and with the Transportation Planning Organization. Our strategic plan is a consolidated document covering all of the work that we do on behalf of all of our boards. So at that retreat, we'll be wanting input from all of you. It'll be someplace local. We had it at the Children's Board, I think, last time. No, at Stetson. So it's someplace centrally located and easy to get to usually. So just a heads up about that, and that's all I had.
I had a question. What about our board retreat? Has there been any thought or discussion towards that? We have a lot of new commissioners.
We do.
And we had some commissioners who didn't show up to last year's retreat that would probably benefit from some of the things that go on at retreats. So I was wondering if we could maybe possibly
Absolutely.
look at getting one together for this up and coming year.
Yes, we can. I think it was about in February or March that we had it last year. So we'll poll for dates. Usually that's about a half day. Again, try to find someplace sort of interesting for you all to see. The last couple have been in some new developments so that you guys get to check some things out. So we'll try and see what we can come up with. And
I'd like to ask Mr. Robin if he could to also, he usually does a little spiel on the government and the Sunshine Law and stuff like that. I think I'd like to do an extra little spiel on attendance if you could, and look at our policies and our, provisions on attendance, and let's all sit down as a group and talk about attendance in this retreat, if possible. I'd like to do that.
Okay. If there are any other topics that you all would like to discuss in a retreat type setting where it's a little bit more informal, we're not on camera, things like that, please let me know. Happy to add them to the agenda. Okay. Great. Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you. On to our next item of business, and it is other business, chair's business. I have none. Old business? Is there any old business? Not seeing any new business. Not seeing any at this point. And committee reports. Yes. Commissioner, I forgot your last name. It's killing me. It's killing me. I want to call you Tony Garcia, and I know that's not right. So.
The other Tony Rodriguez.
Rodriguez, Tony. Commissioner Rodriguez,
Very
please.
good. Thank you. The City of Tampa Affordable Housing Advisory Committee meeting held their last meeting November 16th. Pretty action-packed agenda. We covered status on the city's down payment assistance program, their homeless outreach, rental assistance program. They've got 3 phases that they've conducted, the owner-occupied rehab, and even a pilot replacement home program for those that have damage beyond what the owner-occupied rehab program would cover. So they're choosing 3 homes within the city to participate in that pilot program, as well as we covered the land acquisitions that the city's undergoing for affordable housing. So very action-packed agenda, and our next meeting will be on December 14th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Were there any more committee reports? Commissioner Kress?
Earlier today, the Public Information Committee met, and several of you attended. Thank you for that. Ms. Miranda didn't trust me to do my own report, so she typed one out for me. So we heard about 2 new educational components that the TPO and the Planning Commission, our Plan Hillsborough, I guess, umbrella, are partnering on. One is a monthly Ask a Planner column that will run in the Florida Sentinel Bulletin. That'll start at the end of January. And a new community course series that will be introduced in March. So they are looking for feedback, and we'll, it was a pretty interesting concept that I think we'll start to hear more and more about. We also talked about the October 2022, this year's annual Planning and Design Awards program. I think most of you were there. It was at the Jewish Community Center. We decided that we liked that location for next year. And we talked about when and where it will be next year, talked a little about food, et cetera. And then we talked about the sponsorship levels that are available. Talked about the ticket price. So we'll stay tuned for more information now that the team has some marching orders. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, very interesting. I sat in on that meeting. The Planning 101 seems like it's going to be a very interesting tool to put that information out there for the public. So I would definitely recommend the commissioners looking into that Planning 101 thing and finding out more about that, especially Commissioner Fernandez. And I know Commissioner Cardenas is one who's big on like education and training, teaching the public. That's pretty much what the agency is trying to do with this Planning 101 thing, just coalesce like all sorts of planning knowledge and spread it out there in the community. So minds like yours would be good to get behind there and get your thoughts on the information going out there and crafting it and all that stuff. So I thought of you two when I was in. Not that everyone doesn't have good input. You're all great, but I wanted to put that out there. Thank you, Commissioner Kress. Any more committee reports? Anyone else? Not seeing any at this time. Then we will move on to our last item of business, which is the end of this meeting and adjournment. So at 4:13, I will adjourn this meeting, and we'll see everybody at 5:30 for the public hearings. All right, meeting adjourned.